Hello, Soundless. And so, on the day that Burnley and Leeds United won matches to take them back to the Premiership, I feel just as happy as all their supporters of those two great clubs. And so I'm sure to all of you lot, Sounders, because Pompey have in their own way achieved something just as remarkable and unlikely as Burnley and Leeds. They've established themselves in football's second tier at the first time of asking, made the leap in ability and status from League One to the Championship in this modern football era of greater audiences, greater financial demands, greater media attention, and as a result of all that, greater competition. And we've done it with 2 games to go. It's been a long, tough old haul. And we've done it after the start from hell, facing virtually every top side in the league in our first 10 games and failing to win one of them. Did our belief in the right of our club to be in this new tier of football waver? Of course it didn't. Not for the vast majority of the fan base. There were a few flaky ones. But mostly people believed in the players and above all in the manager. And their loyalty has been rewarded. It's not as though we haven't been up here before in our long history, Sounders, is it? We've been up and we've been down and we're going up again into an established place in the Championship. The game against Watford was never going to be easy on Monday. They came off an unlucky defeat by Burnley, having been in the playoff race for most of the season. They were motivated, they were confident, but quite rightly, John Mousinho didn't let Pompey's own motivation drop after the seemingly season-saving triumph at Norwich, a wonderful triumph that we were all still feeling. But in spite of the fact there were Pompey fans who believed that Pompey was safe after that, as the scores came in on Monday, those hopes were disproved. We needed a result, or the tension and the worry was to continue for all of us. The team was unchanged from Norwich, not surprisingly, considering the quality of that performance. A massive lift, though, was given to all of us by the reappearance on the team sheet after months of injury for Callum Lang and Conor Shaughnessy. Better late than never to see those lads. The game was tough. 5 yellows and a sending off. And Watford were neat and quick in midfield. Their number's 14, Pierre Duomo, 20 years old, a Belgian young man. He's a good player. And Tom Delebichuru, I also picked out, who's a bit old, he's 25, but another really competent midfield player. And he had a Manchester City background, I know, and indeed in his youth at Manchester City he had been replacing Foden at times in games in his very early days of football. So pedigree. Both of those players, I thought, played with a lot of skill and style and hard working. So now, my point is simply that it wasn't easy. It was a hard old game, And it was a relief when we got ahead through that combination of Murphy and Colby Bishop, which is such a feature of our game these days. And it was a mistake by their keeper, wasn't it, Selvig? You only have to make one mistake, because he had a good game, but one mistake led to a result for Pompey. It was a typical Murphy cross into the box that he dropped, and Colby seized onto it, and headed it home twice, as far as I can remember. Got his head on it twice to get it into the net. It was fantastic. And we needed it badly at half-time, when we looked at the results coming in from pretty much all our competitors in the bottom 8. So many of them were picking up points. At half-time, Orshish was subbed for Sadie. I've been such a fan of Orshish, and he came off his best game, I think, the best game that he's had for Pompey at Norwich. But he really didn't play at all well against Watford, and it culminated in that awful moment when we might well have gone in 2 ahead. At the end of the half, when you'll remember he carried the ball through, and then with possibilities to pass to Murphy or Bishop, left and right, his pass was ineffective. It didn't, in fact, as far as I can remember, reach Murphy at all. It was a bad moment for him, and he was hooked. And I don't think anyone could be too surprised about that. And one does worry about his future at Pompey, but that's for another day. The second half was equally competitive. In fact, inevitably, we decided to have what we hold, and fell back to some degree in the second half, and it made life even more tense. Nicholas Schmidt made one incredible save from their captain, a guy called Imran Louza. Won't make a joke about his name, but anyway, he shot. He's a chunky midfield player, but obviously got a shot on him, and he showed it, and Schmidt got a touch onto the post, which was vital and brilliant. And Lusa couldn't believe it. The sending off did have, I think, a considerable effect on the game. And I've looked at it a few times. I think it was justified. Watford were very upset at the time. It was Kevin Keben, who got sent off, and there is no doubt that Josh Murphy had got in front of him in the box, and he had to go. Or was it just outside the box? Must have been just outside the box. But anyway, he had to go. Indeed, I've just a mention of Sam Allison, because he got such a lot of stick both before the game and during the game, and he's obviously not had the best of seasons as a referee, but I don't think he had a bad game against us. I still heard people complaining about him after the game, but I'm not sure whether that's quite fair. A word about the crowd in the second half. The crowd at Fratton Park this season has been absolutely tremendous, and they realise their responsibility. They realise there's a sort of group realisation of the role that the crowd have and can have in encouraging our team to hold on to what they've got. In this case, maintaining our lead. You felt the group mindset of the crowd to do their level best, not to let anything bad happen to their team. And there is no doubt, if you talk to anyone involved with Pompey, that matters. And then we had the dreaded time added on. It was 10 minutes. There had been an awful lot. We picked up a lot of knocks during that half. And therefore, there had to be a lot of time added on. Let's just go through the team before I continue with this. Nicholas Schmidt. I always say it like that. Nicholas Schmidt. He's a genial giant. He came into the Jimmy Dickinson Lounge after the game, actually, and he got a round of applause. He hadn't won anything. He wasn't man of the match or anything. He came in, I think, to see some friends. He is so popular with the Pompey faithful, and quite rightly too. I would argue, Sounders, that he was our best signing in the last 12 months. And he did, just to reiterate, he did make that wonderful save from Lucer. Jordan Williams, another sturdy performance as far as I can see from him. Sadly, he did pick up what looked like another nasty injury for Jordan Williams, and that's slightly a worry, because I think that may be the third. If it's as bad as it looked, it's the third bad injury he's picked up in one season. Perhaps it's typical of our season, but it was unfortunate. Conor Ogilvie. Johnny Moore told me that he has been voted Player of the Season by at least one of the regions, the Pompey Supporters Club regions. I didn't go into any great detail about it, but I think that's terrific, because although he's not obvious, and of course Murphy will win most of those Player of the Season awards, Conor Ogilvie deserves credit for a terrific and consistent and ever improving, really, season. Regan Poole again battled as he's battled ever since he's come back, and he's been so important to us. And I've got a horrible feeling that he picked up an injury. I don't know any detail of it at all. Towards the end, he certainly was subbed off in all the stuff that was going on. I didn't actually see how bad he looked, but had another terrific game, and of course, as always, benefited from his partnership with Rob Atkinson. Freddie Potts is my personal Player of the Season. Had another wonderful game, and he's become very Pompey and very combative, is all I'd say, even though I know he's not a Pompey player. Colby, another golden goal for Colby, and it was really quite shocking. I think he got cramp. His injury, I think, was cramp. I'm hoping it was cramp, but it was almost a shock to see this strong man who we've come to rely on so much after his awful heart tremors, struck down with an injury. I think it was cramp. He had to come off. I have to say, he would have saved us some worry had he scored a second, and he did have opportunities too. But that will always be the case with strikers. I've talked about Adil Oshish. Great game at Norwich, poor game against Watford. Josh Murphy is so consistent really this season, wonderfully consistent when you think that he takes a battering if oppositions can get to him. And he's been so consistent this season. And people keep saying to me, we'll lose him in the summer. I hope desperately we won't. The only thing that will save us having an enormous bid made for him is his age. And it may be that we can hang on to him. Matt Ritchie, yet another flat out 90 minutes from the skipper for the day, Matt Ritchie. Another great performance. Rob Atkinson, I've already said several times how important he's been since he's come back into the fray for Pompey. He's and he's a thoroughly decent person. There was a moment when in the fray he knocked a Watford player over. The game went on. When it stopped, he went over and pulled the Watford player up and made us some sort of, apology about it. It's just a thoroughly decent footballer, that man. Isaac Hayden, midfield warrior. He's come into his own, I think. Quite late in the season, but he hasn't been with us that long, and it's taken him time to get used to us and to get his own fitness. But he had another fine game for Pompey against Watford. And the subs, wow, it was a joy to see Shaughnessy, even though he had to come on because Regan Poole had some sort of injury. But it was lovely for him to be greeted by the faithful. And we already saw he was on for quite a long time when I think about the 10 minutes of time added on, but he wasn't on for that long. But we did see his towering headers in action, and it was terrific. Kasiniengi came on for Colby and ran around with enthusiasm. And might have he did make one or two good runs, powerful runs, and was perhaps a bit unlucky not to win one or two more fouls than he did from those runs. Christian Sadie came on at half time for Oshish, and it was such a sensible move by John Mousinho, because it was a sort of Sadie sort of game, you felt, in the second half. It was a rough rumble of a game, and it needed someone like him to unsettle a very silky Watford midfield. And he's an unsettling sort of player to play against, I would imagine. And certainly came into his own in time added on, because if there is any time killing at the corner flags that's required, Sadie is your man. I doubt there is a better player in the Football League than Sadie when it comes to that role. And we were so glad to have him, and he did kill a lot of minutes in those last 10. Christian Sadie. Terry Devlin came on for Williams. Never lets us down, very popular with the fans. Terry Devlin might well now have a greater part to play in the last couple of games if Williams his injury is as bad as it unfortunately looked. And then a massive crowd favourite came onto the pitch for Murphy after 87 minutes in Callum Lang. It was delightful to see him back. It's going to take him a while. In fact, he hasn't got a while, has he? It's not going to take him that long because the season's almost at an end. But it's going to be difficult for him then to get back in at his best in the short period of time he's got. But it is a lift. It was a lift all round for everyone to see him. And so the game ended, and the crowd lingered on for minutes. Most of the crowd, I mean a huge proportion of the crowd, lingered on to clap their team because they knew it was done. The task was done for the season, and it was a great celebration in the stadium that is Fratton Park. And with that celebration came relief that we could not be relegated. It was a good moment. And then we all disappeared to subterranean places, and I went into the Jimmy Dickinson Lounge, which is what I do. And there were memorable scenes in there that I will remember forever. A massively relieved father in Gordon Messina stumbling through the room with handshakes all round. We should never forget how tough it is on the emotions of the families around football and footballers and football managers, because they can do nothing but support whoever it is that's heavily involved and sit back and watch the fates. Johnny Moore, so long a voice and representative of all our supporters, and there he was shaking hands with his behind-the-scenes pal, finance director Tony Brown, a very important figure at the club, and such an involved man in Pompey these days. I mean, I'm sure he is a devout Scouser. I know he is, in fact. But so happy after survival in the Championship. Another a celebration for Johnny and Tony Brown in the step forward that Pompey made on their journey on Monday, and a journey that will now continue, and we can only be ambitious now and look up. And then Sounders best of all in the Jimmy Dickinson Lounge, a smile from the legend. That's Alan Knight. In the midst of his own battle for survival with cancer, he moved through the room, greeting everybody, enjoying another chapter in his long book of memories of great days at Fratton Park. It was a terrific hour. So, Sounders, not the time to talk about the future. Let's enjoy the moment. I'll get on to the future later in the week with some thoughts on the consequences of looking forward to another season in the Championship. But for now, enjoy your day, Sounders. Play out, Pompey.